I don't really mention it a lot, but Pokemon is one of my favorite video game franchises. I've always loved enslaving small animals to do my bidding, and Pokemon is fun too. And while there are other series like it that are debatably better, they've never really captured the same magic for me. Of course, though, it sort of goes without saying that the series has been pretty hit and miss lately. Saying that the past few titles have been released in an unpolished state is like saying 9/11 was kinda bad. The games have a lot of untapped potential, and even though they're still fun to me at least, I wish we could get more than baby steps for each following generation. And whenever the main series doesn't give us what we want, we look to fan creations and ROM hacks, because if there's one group of people who know how to make video games, it's gotta be Pokemon fans. Right? There are a lot of Pokemon fan games out there, some much better than others, but I've never really been able to get into them for a variety of reasons, mostly because a lot of them aren't balanced properly. However, one in particular caught my attention recently. Pokemon Emerald Rogue. Created by user Pokeabby, Emerald Rogue is, as the name implies, a ROM hack of Hey You Pikachu that turns the game into a roguelike, akin to games such as Enter the Gungeon or The Binding of Isaac. Now, I think roguelikes are fun in short bursts, but I ultimately never really get into them. It's not really a genre I care for. But I mean, when you combine it with Pokemon, I mean, well, it sounds pretty cool, and also I was really bored. And as we all know, my boredom leads me to the most interesting places. Anyway, with this being a ROM hack, to actually play it, you're going to need a demonic device called an specifically a Game Boy Advance one, as well as a ROM of Hey You Pika... Damn it. As well as a ROM of Pokemon Emerald that was legally acquired. Unless if I'm stupid and forget, there should be a link to the download page in the description, and there are plenty of tutorials on how to patch the ROM online. And as for obtaining the ROM, well, you're just gonna have to find it on your own. There's no story to tell here. As soon as the game starts, immediately bro's just like, dude, this is a Pokemon, and then you select which trainer you want to use. And there are even a bunch of different alts to choose from, which is very much appreciated. You're brought to this big hub area, and you meet Scott, the battle facility guy.
Hey y'all!
After he says https://discord.gg/xgyb9gtpae, you get to choose your starter. We've got all the fan favorites to choose from, such as the Pidgey, the Charmander, and of course, who could forget the best one, Relicanth. That one was always my favorite. But yeah, after that and a short explanation on how the game works, it just shuts up and actually lets you play it. Wow, it's already a massive improvement over the main series. So like I stated earlier, Emerald Rogue is a Pokemon roguelike. At the start of a run, you're presented with a big map, very similar to what you'd find in a standard classic RPG. On the map, there are a bunch of randomly generated routes, shops, and other events represented by an assortment of icons. The most important of which are the routes, since this is where you'll find Pokemon and items you're going to need to, you know, beat the game. You go through routes collecting random items and Pokemon, battling trainers, stopping by shops to stock up, and at the end of each map, you have to do a gym battle. After each gym, you rinse and repeat until you get to the Elite Four and some final battles after that. You know, it's like a condensed version of the structure the main series uses. Each run will probably last anywhere from 2 to 4 hours depending on how good you are. What makes it so interesting though is obviously the randomness. The routes you get, events you come across, items in the shops, the Pokemon you find, they're all randomly assigned every time you play the game. Okay, well the routes themselves aren't randomly generated, they're carbon copies of routes from the first 3 generations with altered designs to make them quicker to traverse and fit the design of the game. I mean, I'm pretty fine with this for the most part, but there's a very small pool of routes, and this can lead to you getting repeats on a single playthrough. There was one run where I got Ice Cavern from Gen 2 3 times, and you know, we love Ice Cavern. But while the routes aren't randomly generated, their contents are. When you enter a route, the trainers, items, and Pokemon all contained within it will be different every time. Within reason, of course. The game is balanced so you won't get anything too stupid before your first couple of badges. I mean, you haven't even been to the first gym yet. What do you expect to find? Something like Rayquaza? Oh my! Before you enter a route, you get a short description of what it's like to give you an idea of what type of Pokemon are in it and how many are available there, with the number varying between 2 to 6. Something handy is that when you enter the route, the game will display how many encounters are available there, so you don't waste time running around to make sure there aren't any more mons you haven't seen yet. There's a lot of quality of life stuff here. If you couldn't tell by the opening, respecting the fact that I have the patience of a 2-year-old, the pacing in this game is really quick. Battle animations are much faster, you can exit out of the menu as soon as you pick up an item, you have a quick button to select Pokeballs, and the modern EXP share is present here as well. Why are you booing? That's a good thing! I get that the EXP share has been a major point of contention over the past few years, but here at least I think it's balanced perfectly. Provided you don't screw around with the extra settings, there's a level cap for each badge, but to compensate you get tons of EXP for even the simplest of encounters and all of your Pokemon get a piece of the pie. And if you don't reach the level cap before the next gym fight, there's a trainer to help you reach it so you're on equal footing. It works wonderfully here, making Pokemon that are hindered by high level evolution requirements a lot more viable without having to grind for hours on end. Personally, I enjoy Volcarona actually being usable this time around. It saves a lot of time and the gym fights still end up being really brutal in the late game anyway. You spend less time doing tedious grinding and more time building good movesets, stats, and strategies with what you're given. Speaking of which, there are a lot of options for team building here. If you manage to reach a rest spot, you can find an area to buy various competitive battling items such as your choice items, life orb, leftovers, pretty much everything is here and accounted for. Stuff beyond Gen 3 as you've probably just noticed, even including the nature mints from Gen 8 and the ability capsule and patch. Yes, hidden abilities are in this game. Emerald Rogue is Gen 3 in art style and engine alone. Anything that was introduced past this point in the series is probably in this game. The physical special split, various moves and abilities, and finally addressing the Copperajah in the room, Pokemon from Gen 4 and beyond. When you first start a new file, the game limits you to Pokemon from Gens 1 through 3 prior to beating a run, which I think works perfectly fine. But having the whole roster opens the door to a lot more silliness, so I think we should get the whole gang here before starting another run. I think I found a way. That's right, we're gonna cheat. If you interact with this window in the configuration lab, you can open up this secret room where you can find the hacks creator and various other options to make the game more fun. This is where you can turn on post-Gen 3 Pokemon as well as gym leaders from Kanto and Johto. You can also find the Mega and Z-Rings here, but I'm gonna be real, I don't think you should turn these on because due to the random nature of this game, it's unlikely you'll actually obtain the Mega Stones you need to take advantage of it. Meanwhile, the gym leaders definitely will, and then you'll die! Oh no! Oh my goodness gracious! Oh yeah, a very teensy-weensy, extremely important detail that I've neglected to mention until now. This game follows my Nuzlocke rules. Not the one Pokemon per area thing, I mean the whole dying thing. If you die in the game, you die in real life. And if a Pokemon faints, it's dead for good, and it can really sting due to the sheer amount of resources it takes to make them viable for later fights. And not only that, but they take their held item with them. You've been through so many tough battles, had to sell so many items to get the money needed to get the movesets and items for your Pokemon, and then it's just gone in the blink of an eye. Not only that, but by default, this game is played on set mode, which doesn't give you the option to switch out your Pokemon after a KO. While I personally prefer playing the main series on shift, set works really well here and adds another layer of strategy. Paired with the permadeath rules, switching Pokemon is a decision that requires way more commitment here, and at times it's perfectly reasonable to sack one of your Mons to get a free switch. Also, healing is a major commodity in this game. You only ever get free heals after a gym fight or if you find a full rest stop. Otherwise, you can get one free heal per run from this Nurse Joy right before a gym fight, or use your items and elixirs to heal up your Pokemon. And those healing items are in short supply if you're not using your equally limited money to buy more. If you even get the opportunity to buy more. Much later on, gym leaders start getting really tough and can even have legendaries on their teams or have terrain and weather persist during their whole fights. I don't really mind the whole legendary thing that much since you can find legendaries yourself, so yeah, if they're going to pull a little Timmy on you, then you can turn around and do the same to them. Though sometimes their builds are really freaking annoying, like one member of their team will be completely normal and then the next will be the most random wall you've ever seen. There's always that one Pokemon that has substitute install strats that not even a 12-year-old Showdown player would use. What on God's green earth is a Stealth Fox strat? I prefer to find a good sweeper like Moxie Heracross and try to get rid of half the enemy team before they can lay a finger on me. You know what they say, they can't kill you if they don't get the chance to move. But Luggo, nobody has ever said that. Sometimes though I get totally cleaned out by a rough gym battle and it's so late into a run that each route afterwards turns into a danger zone. I have little to no resources left and doing the simple act of walking around is the most terrifying thing ever because any moment now I could run into a run killer. Ah! There's a man over here, isn't there? So yeah, This game is pretty hardcore, but that's what I really like about it. It gives you the opportunity to use all sorts of Pokemon you never would have thought of using and build the coolest sets with them. I've always been interested in competitive Pokemon and team building, but I've only ever dabbled in it due to the bar of entry being really high, and sometimes the ideas I come up with and the Pokemon I want to use simply aren't viable in the current meta. Here though, since this is a single player experience, I have a lot more options to craft a cool team with Pokemon that fill all sorts of different roles, provided I have the tools to build them. It's also got a lot of the appeal that comes with Nuzlocking without the massive time commitment thanks to the EXP share and level cap. I've done several runs of this game while calling with my friends, and we've had a ton of fun giving the Pokemon stupid nicknames and coming up with crazy strategies on the fly while also clenching our ass cheeks anytime one of our guys gets breathed on. I enjoyed it so much that I ended up putting it on my modded 3DS as well, so I don't have to hunch over a computer desktop to play. I mean, I lose the speed up button, but it is portable though. And hey, it works perfectly too! Okay, well that emulator doesn't work, but this other one does. Funny story, so I already had a few playthroughs under my belt before playing this on 3DS, but I never actually finished a run. Because I couldn't find a way to get my save file to work with my 3DS, I decided to have a separate file on here instead, and I completed my very first run on this fresh save. I had a really good team, however, one of the late game fights totally tore through it, with my strongest remaining members being a Salamence and a Dragapult that had been with me for most of the run. And that Dragapult put in the work. Like I said, fast sweepers are amazing in this hack, and that thing was no exception. Anyway, I get to the last fight, which ended up being Steven, with the team I cobbled together at the last second. I was not confident in winning this fight at all, and I almost got completely walled by Klefki and Steelix. And then, after they were dealt with, Dragapult started sweeping. And sweeping, before ending up on his last Pokemon, Excadrill, which I assumed had Sand Rush due to Sand being active during the fight. I switched to Salamence just to get an Intimidate, hoping that would let Dragapult take a hit later, and thankfully it used Earthquake. So now I got a free turn to heal up Dragapult, but then oddly enough, Excadrill used Earthquake again even though it couldn't hit Salamence. And then it did it again. And again. So at that moment, I realized that it must have been Choice Band Excadrill and had locked itself into Earthquake, and now the sand was the only thing that could hurt Salamence, but Flamethrower quickly did Excadrill in, and I achieved my first win by the skin of my balls. It's a memory I'll never forget, and the fact that I'm having experiences like that with a fan-made project speaks volumes about how great it is. There's a lot of other stuff you can unlock by completing little side quests, such as access to new facilities to help you on future runs, a Safari Zone to catch new starting Pokemon for your runs. There are also additional difficulty options and other toggleable features to add even more replay value. I even recently discovered new modes, such as the Gauntlet mode, which gives you only one map at the start, and then after that makes you fight all of the bosses in a row without the opportunity to pick up more items or Pokemon. There's so much to do in this game, and it seems like it's going to continue getting more updates. Gen 9 Pokemon aren't here yet, so it'd be cool to see those get added in at some point, but in the meantime, there's still a ton to do. I mean, you can even shiny hunt if you want. I mean, for some reason, the shiny rate in this game is super jacked up. I found more shinies in this game than in my 15-ish years playing the main series. I accidentally hit my mute button. I'm sorry?
Oh my god.
If you're really knowledgeable about Pokemon or just love the games like I do but want a more streamlined and challenging experience, then I can't recommend Emerald Rogue enough. This is probably my favorite fan game ever made. Now, if I did have some things to critique, I'd like to see the list of routes expanded upon, as I find it gets really repetitive to trudge through the same couple of routes multiple times, even on the same run. And there's this annoying quirk that also extends to the main series, but really should be addressed here. Even if your level exceeds that of a wild Pokemon, the game sometimes just won't let you escape, and this has led to me losing Pokemon due to something out of my control that should by all means be in my control. I know I could use like a Pokédoll or something to guarantee escape, but that's more menu navigation in the game that's otherwise really well paced, and I don't think letting me run away from a Pokemon 6 levels lower than me 100% of the time will take away any of the challenge that's already present. Aside from that, obviously I'd like to see the Gen 9 Pokemon get added, but I understand that sprite creation takes a lot of time, and the sprite work is already really impressive, so let them take their time. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say. Emerald Rogue is a great time, and you should go play it. Anyway, that's all the time I've got. I'm Luggo the Luggician, and thank you very much for Krusty Bug, what did you do?